Liz for that little introduction. I know all of you are wondering, why is Dr. Glassman's wife speaking to you this evening? Well, for all of you who know me well, there is never a short answer. But I will do my best to share my very personal story, and hopefully you will understand why I am introducing you to Dr. Sordella. In the very beginning of my marriage, I learned that Larry had a deep compassion for his patients. He never judged them. He only wanted to help them. I, on the other hand, judged. Most of his patients had lung cancer, and I assumed they were all smokers. The data were clear. They had caused their own cancers. One evening, Larry came home and he was in a very somber mood. He told me he had operated on a young woman with lung cancer, the mother of a 2-year-old, and the prognosis was not good. The next day, his mood had not improved. In fact, he was near tears. He told me he had gone to see the woman and she was doing very well. In fact, she was in bed playing with her young daughter. She looked up at him and said, "I know I am not going to live very long. I just want to live long enough for her to remember me." She died within a year. That was my introduction to what our family came to call bad luck lung cancer. Young men and women who never smoked and then developed deadly lung cancer. Perhaps she had a gene that, had it been detected and identified, it could have prevented her tragic death. I know something, a lot, about bad luck genes. My grandfather died of pneumonia when my father was 6. He was the only child of elderly parents, and we never knew any of his relatives. At the age of 36, my father was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. A few years later, his sister was diagnosed with polycystic kidney disease. Both diseases have clear hereditary factors. No one on my grandmother's side had either illness, so it was determined that the link was to our long ago deceased grandfather. The terminology of genes was not widespread, so we referred to him as a bad egg. 3 years ago, I found a lump in my breast. I knew immediately I had cancer. As a woman on Long Island, I knew the statistics, and I was not shocked. I saw a breast surgeon, and she told me I should be tested for the BRCA gene. I agreed, never imagining I would have it. No one in my family had ever had a BRCA-related cancer. It turned out I had a very aggressive triple-negative tumor, highly associated with BRCA. I began to wonder. A few days later, the BRCA test came back positive. I was shocked. I was BRCA1, 187 DELAG. I had inherited the Ashkenazi bad luck gene. The bad egg grandfather I never knew, the likely source. My sister came to stay with us to care for me after my double mastectomy. I sat her down the evening before my surgery and told her I was BRCA positive. My sister is a doctor, a researcher for the National Institute of Health. Genes are her thing. Imagine her shock to hear I had this mutation. A few weeks later, her BRCA test came back positive. The nurse that called to tell her the results said, "You have the same gene as your sister." My sister was lucky to discover the gene before it wreaked havoc on her body. Knowing breast and ovarian cancer were highly likely, she saw a gynecologic oncologist and a breast surgeon. She made the decision to have a double mastectomy first, since the gene had picked breast cancer in me. Then she would follow with a partial hysterectomy the following year. After my sister was anesthetized for her mastectomy, the surgeon did a brief but thorough physical exam. He found a mass in her abdomen, and although my sister was already asleep under general anesthesia, the surgery on her breast was halted to whisk her to radiology to do an MRI of her abdomen. My sister had early stage but highly malignant ovarian cancer. She underwent surgery to have the cancer removed and started chemotherapy. We were both fighting our own bad luck cancers. My sister returned home and joined the group FORCE. FORCE advocates for families facing hereditary breast and ovarian cancer in areas such as access to care, research funding, insurance, and privacy. She and I have had access to an abundant amount of support and information. She attends a regular Friday night dinner hosted by families that all share the same mutation. It has become a huge part of her life. Yes, they do lose friends that succumb to their disease, but the good far outweigh the bad. You all know Breast Cancer Awareness Month is October. It's impossible to miss. Whether you're watching the NFL all decked out in pink or seeing pink ribbons almost everywhere you look, it's obvious there's international awareness and massive funding in search of a cure. So here I am, the carrier of this mutated gene, talking to friends and family of loved ones that have died from another bad luck gene. Why am I the speaker? I should be in a room decorated in pink, which is kind of funny, I am. Surrounded by all the other lucky survivors. I will tell you plain and simply why. Betsy, after a misdiagnosis, survived 3 months. Kathy, after a 3-year battle, lost her fight with stage 4 small cell lung cancer. They had very little long-term survival data to look at and cling to for hope. The American Lung Association states, it is the leading organization working to save lives by improving lung health and preventing lung disease. If you dig deeply into their website, you will find some information on the comprehensive genomic testing of lung cancer tumors. Where does the hope lie for families that could possibly carry flawed genes? It lies in labs like Cold Spring Harbor and researchers like Dr. Sordella. There is no early detection or screening for lung cancer the way there is for breast cancer. Thus, we must fund the researchers. The health and very survival of many people is in their hands. We are all acutely aware of the words pre-existing condition. What will happen when Dr. Sordella and other researchers isolate the bad luck lung cancer gene? Will Betsy and Kathy's children and grandchildren get tested? Dr. Louise Aronson recently published an editorial in the New York Times. She stated, I was first tested and learned of my mutation in the 1990s. For years thereafter, my doctors and I had to do some fancy footwork in medical records and insurance claims so I could get the cancer screening I needed without revealing information that might hurt both my insurability and employability. It was stressful and scary, and it influenced where I chose to work, always for large organizations with no questions asked insurance options and extensive coverage. Is this the reality that so many of us in this room now face? When will I test my child? How will I get her the screening she needs without jeopardizing her insurability? I implore all of you to understand what is at stake and take vigorous action. We need funding for science more than ever. Our healthy future is at the mercy of the government and insurance companies. Let us take that out of their hands by funding the research that is needed, not only to isolate mutant genes, but ultimately manipulate them to shut down their destructive characteristics. The Woodson Simon families know the Cold Spring Harbor Labs holds the key to their future. Each year we stand here grateful for all the work they have done to help fund the Sordella Lab. It is my honor and privilege to introduce my friend and distinguished associate professor of lung cancer research, Dr. Rafaela Sordella. She is the proprietor of the key.